back in just under a week ago from PAX South down in San Antonio, Texas. I figured I'd hit you with a little vlog video recap here before real life really intercedes and the whole memory of the convention fades away. But to preface this a bit, just to fill you in on what is a PAX convention, it's Penny Arcade Expo. Very large video game oriented convention that happens to have a large tabletop gaming presence, concerts, generally a celebration of all things geek culture. They're pretty big in size, 50 to 75,000 people, depending on which PAX you're talking about. And I go to them every year. I go to multiple. I work at the conventions. I'm volunteer on the show staff. And there's nothing like a PAX convention comparing it to other major conventions. They've been going since, I want to say 2005 or 2006. So they're relatively young conventions, and what really shines about them is the management of the show. I mean, these conventions are smooth compared to other conventions out there, and I'm going to go totally off the cuff theory here. PAX came out of LAN party environment, like 2003, 4, 5. They were hosting Penny Arcade LAN parties that PAX grew out of. And in order to pull off a LAN party, you need to be super organized. You need to have your stuff together. Whereas other major cons probably came out of the sci-fi convention culture of the 70s or the 80s, and sort of fallen into their habits and routine from there. This being a more fresher con, it's a really refreshing environment, and the environment they bring as far as professionalism and organization, it really flows down to the people. We're talking the quality of the attendee experience. I mean, there's a whole ethos of, welcome home, don't be a dick, be good to each other. There's a really quality crowd that comes out to PAX conventions, and as I flipped over and started going into the give back phase where I work most of the show now, the people you work with are fantastic. So going to these conventions is really, to see the friends you see and meet new people, because everyone's extremely welcoming and fun to be around. But enough about the general environment and the vibe and the history of the PAX. What happened at this PAX South and why was it amazing? Well, tabletop was there in force, so there was a lot of positive developments here. PAX South being the third time we had this convention, and it's been growing every year. It felt small compared to other PAXs, but in truth, in its first year, it was bigger than any of the other first year PAXs. So it got off to a very strong start and has slowly grown from there. And it's got a reputation for being the most tabletop PAX. I think that's because a lot of the other PAXs are generally sold out if you're trying to get in at the exhibitor level. So as word caught on that, hey, you board game companies, you should all actually be at PAX, they tried to get in, they got bounced up against a wall of sold out booths. So they're sneaking into South now where there's more available space, being the younger convention. Also, on the flip side, a lot of the video game companies aren't actually there. I mean, you had Nintendo there with its first ever playable public demo of the Switch. Like, that was a big deal. But a lot of the other things that come along with AAA video gaming, they don't show up there. So it's a lot of indie video games, which is great in my book, partnered with a growing section of tabletop content. Even the PAX Indie Showcase, which has a little bit of a different flavor for each convention, that one is specifically tabletop games for PAX South. So it gets a lot of the indie creators out there and helps give more of a, the culture of tabletop gaming is sweeping through that convention. As far as traffic in the area, like, I was pretty much in tabletop all 3 days. You had a lot more people this year. Looking at the tabletop library, that thing is growing. It's up over 1,100 games now, so it's growing at a pretty steady clip. And the traffic, as far as checkouts were going there, we were wondering if it was going to hit PAX East numbers. PAX East has a rocking tabletop scene. It grew a lot, by several hundred people coming in and registering to check out games. Didn't quite hit East, but where it did hit East is the actual number of games checked out. So the people that were coming in to check out games at South were staying in that section for a much longer time than someone who might play 1 or 2 games at East. They were coming in to play multiple games and stay there for a significant portion of time. And you could tell when you looked at the amount of seats available. We had a lot of space, and you could find a table if you looked hard enough. So it was at that perfect level of supply and demand, but it was crowded. It was a good packed hall. Even on the exhibitor side of things, I mean, PAX has separate exhibition areas for tabletop, and which is open until midnight, and then there's the larger, big loud speaker expo hall video game area, you'd say, but that's about 10% video game too, and that one's open till 6. So we usually get that wave of people comes over after 6 and plopping down to tabletop. But if you add up all the booths in both of those halls, take a look at what was there last year, what was there this year, tabletop presence was actually up by 60%, which is huge. And there are too many companies for me to sit here and name them all. But just purely personally speaking, what my interest is in board games, there was a bunch of bigger names that caught my eye as, hey, I haven't seen these people at PAX before, and they're starting to come out. So we had Asmodee had a much bigger presence than last year. Last year was their first time back since all the mergers and buyouts happened. They were there as Fantasy Flight years ago, but hadn't been going because of some scheduling conflicts. But they had a much larger booth this time around. They brought everything except their F2Z acquisitions. I don't think that whole integration is 100% complete yet. But that was a good sight to see, and they're going to be at every show moving forward with that kind of support. You had Tasty Minstrel Games come out for their first PAX, which was awesome to see because they're one of my favorite companies. Mayday Games was out there. I don't think they've been to a PAX before, but they have a lot of fun dexterity games and some other really cool looking board games. I hope to see them back. And Indie Boards and Cards, which I think was at one PAX East prior, brought a nice bigger presence to South, and they've acquired Action Phase as well now, so they're a growing company. It's really cool to see them out there. Tim Fowers doing Burgle Brothers, Paperback, Fugitive. He's been in the showcase, the Indie Showcase, 2 years running, and he graduated to a full-size booth over in the tabletop area, and he was doing demos the entire show, packed crowd. And over in that video game side, you're starting to see some of the board game companies that are putting out app versions of their games, and as a result, they're getting really big, deluxe premium booths sitting in that hall. So North Star Games and Renegade Games, which is partnered up with Direwild, their app developer, they had these gigantic booths full of demo tables and iPad stations and the like. I actually swung over there and got a demo of Clank at the Direwild booth from the Renegade people. And they were doing a Penny Arcade challenge. And for those who haven't been to PAX, Penny Arcade is like the equivalent of Disney pin trading. So Penny Arcade puts out their own lineup of pins, but then exhibitors are able to, go through PA and have a pin design, and they purchase some quantity, and they can be part of the official pin trading program. So they had a cool dragon pin that they were giving away to people who won demos of Clank. So that was a no-brainer for me because I've been wanting to play Clank for a while. It's got a lot of great buzz, and complete caveat here, it was really, really good. I want to play it again. I want to check out this expansion that's coming along. But again, it was great to see another really big up-and-coming company getting out there at a PAX convention. We also had the Broken Token, which was out there last year. South has that tabletop flavor, and I love getting to see the Broken Token booth because it's the only PAX they come to just because of the availability and the pricing and such. South does happen to be the cheapest convention to go to because San Antonio is really awesome about everything being super cheap and tons of hotels and all that stuff. But Broken Token has this amazing booth they bring out for every convention. And, as a board gamer, you're always on the line of do I really want to spend that kind of money for something to use as an insert for my game? And I'm totally on the fence with buying them or not. But if you're in that similar situation, you want to see them in person. You want to give it an honest checkout. So the ability to go in, look at their product, and then slowly see your wallet slipping away as you realize that their stuff is amazing. Why do people buy the foam insert ones? The only reason I can think of is that they're lighter. Maybe your boxes aren't as heavy at that point. But the laser cut wood stuff is amazing compared to some of these other products out there. So huge endorsement from me there as well. Some of the other big developments here. Last thing on the exhibitors, I was really hoping to see, they had a Serlin Games booth, and Dave Serlin, I don't think has been to a PAX in a long time. I was hoping to try to get to play Codex. The booth was entirely video games. He's doing a fighting game, Fantasy Strike, as he's swinging back from the tabletop properties he's developed under that IP and making a fighting video game there. So that was the whole booth. No board game demos from Serlin this time around, but hopefully he had a good time and he'll be back. So Here we go. The other big thing that happened tabletop-wise at PAX South was True Dungeon, which is a Gen Con staple, and I was really nervous about this because, you hear stories of, what is True Dungeon? It's a 2-hour long dungeon crawl. I mean, it's kind of like an escape room, puzzle room before its time. It's been going for decades. Call it a LARP, if you will. You go in there, you deck out your character, you get the armor and the sword, you can go in costume if you want. You go through and you roleplay it, a dungeon, a live action dungeon crawl. But where it comes in is it costs money. Like, you drop money for a ticket, and then you start dropping money to equip your character. And as far as the Gen Con experience has been described to me, like, people can drop hundreds of dollars going out to dealers and, like, buying equipment tokens from past years that you can't get anymore. So what is it going to be like? Oh, I want the 1988 plate mail armor, and I want the 1993 broadsword. Here's $200. Let me have an awesome character. I'm going to go in and rock the True Dungeon. Like, that is 100% against the Penny Arcade PAX convention experience. Like, where you go in and you do not have to drop a dime. You don't have to schedule your presence in events unless it's a big tourney. You don't have to pay money for extra things. You just go in, you just enjoy your time. And they managed to tweak the True Dungeon formula so it was exactly that. I guess they had some kind of compromise where True Dungeon said, hey, if you're not going to let us charge an arm and a leg or let people use, all their fancy tokens from decades of attendance, then we're going to give you a demo version, which is supposed to take an hour. I think it was like 15 minutes for equipping your character and going through the tutorial, and then 45 minutes of an actual sample dungeon crawl. Seems like people had a really good time. They closed kind of early. I worked most of the day during the convention. So they closed at 7 on the Friday, Saturday, and they were done by 1 on Sunday. So there's no chance I was getting up there. They had a line. Apparently it moved pretty fast. It wasn't too bad. I guess for the premium experience it is. If you're going to wait 1 hour, like, that's borderline acceptable. I try not to wait in lines at conventions. But I probably would have done it if it was open till midnight. Would have found a way to get a group there, just play a game in line and get through it to check it out. But oh well. Sounds like they'll be back. I don't think anything has been announced, but I did bump into people on the show floor and just heard them talking about it. So I asked them, hey, how was your True Dungeon experience? They gave me a big thumbs up and said, oh yeah. And they were looking for volunteers for next year. And I might go volunteer with them, kind of thing. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't heard anything, or no one said anything, but it sounds like they're planning on being back for PAX South 2018. So that was cool. And then the big news for PAX South was that PAX Unplugged got announced. Kind of leaked online due to an early posting of an Ars Technica article. But a decent number of people, a lot of people in the industry just hadn't noticed that it had posted. So they announced it during the Penny Arcade Q&A session Friday morning, right after the opening of the convention, that there's going to be a major PAX edition. It's going to be a full, legitimate PAX, just without the majority of the video gaming section. You may still see things like, digital card games like a Hearthstone, or iPad and Android ports of your favorite board games, for instance. But mostly entirely tabletop gaming, full size, all the staples of PAX as much as it makes sense. I mean, nothing's been officially announced as which portions of Penny Arcade Expo will be there. I know there were some interviews that said, oh yeah, we really want an Acquisitions Incorporated main theater type live show, but no one can say whether it will actually get there or not. So I guess the intent is to get as much as possible. It's all just to be determined. That's going to be in Philly in the third weekend of November, right before Thanksgiving, which causes a big problem for the industry because it's BGG-Con weekend. And I mean, it's super, super unfortunate. This was a side effect of convention center availability type stuff. You go into a new city and you kind of take what you get. And if you're set on that city and that region and that general time of year. But I mean, there's been a lot of people freaking out online, at least from the attendee experience. It's really, really kind of silly. It's sold out convention booked same weekend as other sold out convention. Everyone will be at a convention if they want to be that weekend. It's not like there's this crazy rivalry or competition. I mean, even from numbers, BGG is 2,800 people, and a PAX Unplugged will probably be something in the ballpark of 30,000. So it's the Northeast. It's just going to be a regional convention. Some people will fly out, I'm sure, but people come from all over the world clamoring for a possibility of getting into BGG-Con because it's kind of the insiders club. And that's where the conflict really happens. It's the small handful of people who are in the industry and would ideally like to be at both. Who it hurts the most is probably small board game companies who are going to be forced to say, should I go to the place that has 30,000 people and try to sell a lot of product? Because I'll be honest, like the types of people that are going to be there, like BGG is like the hobby that exists and has existed for a long time, and PAX is the new growth area of the hobby. That's people who've been converting year after year. That's the double-digit growth you see in board games for the past decade. So it's two separate circles of the hobby. They're not that much overlap. There were like 5 people, me and 4 other people, who were like, damn it, I want to go to both. BGG is one of my favorite conventions. So that's really what you're going to see is people saying, well, I need to be here at BGG for the hot early adopter crowd if I want to build any kind of buzz for my game. On the other hand, I want to be with the fresh blood and sell a bunch of product because these people are hungry. They're like, I got a new shelf, I gotta fill it. So people tend to sell out their stock at PAX conventions. It's a tough call, and maybe it forces some maturity into the industry where people start to develop volunteer networks and booth employees. They can try to use contractors or something to swing a presence at 2 conventions. If not, I don't think anyone's going to be unhappy with either of the conventions. You go to one, you're going to have a good time as an attendee or as an exhibitor if you're a board game company. The last thing I want to see is, companies get poached out of BGG, but I really don't see that happening due to the importance of the kind of people who show up to BGG. Even if you're not like an internet personality down at that convention, you're at the very least, you're like a BGG power user. So people want the buzz development that convention offers. I won't be there, unfortunately, this year because I'm involved in trying to help plan PAX Unplugged, on the volunteer level. So I'll be helping out, doing the tabletop library stuff, being an enforcer like I have been the past couple of years at PAX conventions. And in whatever capacity I'm able to, I'm going to try to help make that convention a really, really awesome space. Like I said, I wanted to go to BGG. Since I can't go to BGG, I want to turn PAX Unplugged into BGG as much as I can. Just, BGG for the Northeast region who can't fly down to Texas to a small convention where you can barely get a ticket. So don't see it as that big of a problem. There's going to be a lot of other industry presence there too, miniatures, RPGs, things that haven't had the space and the attention to really breathe full life into them at PAXs of the past. You're going to be able to see really good content there. Obviously nothing I'm saying is official because I don't know anything about the convention. I'm just really purely speculating on most of that stuff here, but it seems to make a lot of sense. So it's going to be an awesome convention. Hopefully I see you out in Philly, and hopefully I can make it to PAX South for a 4th time in a row. Adding more conventions to the calendar is going to pose a bit of a challenge, but we'll see what happens. Philly's pretty local for me, so maybe I can make that one happen without too much pain. And if I'm back down there, maybe this little recap has convinced you that PAX South is a really, really amazing convention. I just want to go down there next January because it's warm and the food's awesome and the people are awesome and I get to play games for a couple of days. So hey, it's a big win. All right, this has gone extremely long, so a cookie for you if you've managed to sit through my talking head for an entire 18 minutes. And until then, I'll see you around. Thanks for watching.